This is the Friday, February 14th, 2014 version of the Market Plus segment. Joining us on this Valentine's Day is Tomm Pfitzenmaier. Tom, welcome back.
Thanks, Mark.
We didn't have
Sorry.
All right. We didn't have a chance to discuss cotton during the show. A little bit of a rally. What are your thoughts on the cotton market?
You know, the interesting thing about cotton is while we've seen this big break in the corn and the beans, the cotton market has hung in there relatively well. Had a little bit of an up again this week. Is hanging in there in the mid 80s now. That CBO report this week that projected cotton made a cotton projection. They're talking about it possibly slipping over the next year or so down in the mid 60s. But that's not too bad. The big question in my mind is those southern producers where they tend to grow cotton really have switched to corn over the last couple of years. They had record corn yields this year. What are they going to do this year? Corn's dropped, but their yields are good. Cotton prices, which are really good, but they haven't been having that great of luck growing cotton. So how are they going to react? And that feeds into what's going to happen with the cotton market as well as what's going to happen with the corn market. Historically, my idea is that when you've had really good luck growing a crop, when you've grown record levels of it, you're probably going to at least try it one more time. And if that's the case, that's going to tend to be supportive to cotton acreage. And if we can get the demand going on cotton, which is highly dependent upon China and how they react, I think we could have relatively decent cotton prices through 2014.
All right, and you mentioned the CBO report talking cotton down in the 60s. Would that be an incentive for some folks to go out there and get 1 to 2 years out priced, at least to some percentage?
I would think it would. I guess to me, cotton priced in the mid 80s is a pretty good cotton price. So I would think you'd want to have some coverage. Maybe you don't get carried away and you just 25% or something like that. But I think you'd want to have something covered up at those levels.
Just get some protection on there.
Yeah.
All right. Now, we do have a couple of actually a number of great questions from our Twitter followers and Facebook followers. And Jenny in Illinois is going to start us off. We've had a cold winter, Tom. It's been cold, it's been unpleasant, and it's early. We're not yet to planting, but Jenny's concerned, what effects will this super cold winter have on the grain markets, if any, heading into this next crop year?
I guess I'd reconfigure that question a little bit and say it already has had an effect. I think we have had very little grain movement really since the first of the year because it's been so cold. People don't want to get the trucks going, the augers and all the stuff they have to use to move grain, and so we have seen very little grain movement. Now, going forward, the forecasts are for that to moderate, and I suspect you're going to start to see some grain move. Now, that hasn't had an effect of stopping sales. Farmers have been making sales, but you haven't been moving. But the grain hasn't been moving. So that, to me, is where the difference is made, and it also is probably going to tend to show up in the basis. We've had very good basis because they couldn't get their hands on the grain. They're bidding up to get their hands on it. I think going forward, you're going to start to see the ethanol plants and the end users are bought out February, March, starting to work their way into April. Once they get those needs met, I think you're going to see basis deterioration. So in my mind, that's where weather plays into it. I mean, we can't ruin the crop or anything because of it during the winter.
And I know it's very early, but have we started talking about delayed planting at all? I know we've got almost 30 inches of frost in the ground in Iowa, and I'm sure it's comparable throughout the rest of the Corn Belt. Is that a concern yet, or do we hope this moderation will lick that in time?
To be honest with you, you're the first one I've heard mention it, so I don't think it's real widespread.
Okay, I heard it on Twitter, so thank you, Twitter folks.
You're a cutting-edge kind of guy, so.
All right, well then we'll throw that question away. All right, looking on, we do have a lot of questions. As you're talking crop movement out in the field, Tim in Crookston, Minnesota is asking, do we reward this mini rally and sell into it with some wheat and some beans?
Absolutely, I think we kind of talked about that on the show too. We've rallied those old crop beans up into that 13.50 plus. Maybe there's another 20-30 cents in there. I wouldn't rule that out. But we're up into levels where I think sales. If you haven't made sales, make some. If you haven't made enough, make some more. And again, wheat up at $6, I think needs to be sold too.
Yeah, and now you've mentioned South America, their harvest is underway. It's hot in some parts of Brazil. Does it still look like it's going to be a huge crop?
I mean, there were some that thought the soybean crop in Brazil could creep up into that 92 million metric ton. You're starting to hear the last few days that some people are kind of backing that off into the 89.5 to 90 range. Still a huge crop, maybe not quite as big as we thought, and it's going to be a problem. Like you say, they're getting harvested. There was some talk about it being dry, but most of the dryness is in the south, in the southeastern area where they don't tend to grow as much. The areas where they actually grow the majority of their crops are really in quite good shape.
Okay. Now, well, that kind of leads us right into Calvin and Bernard's question. As we look at new crop beans, you mentioned on the show that this recent rally we've got represents a pretty good selling opportunity. As you look through the rest of this marketing year, what other bullish factors are out there? Are we going to have other opportunities throughout the year?
Well, like I said in the show, we're an island of tightness in old crop. Looking forward, there's not, like I said, Canada had a huge crop. They've got product to sell. The South American crop's huge. The expectation, I mean, the CBO came out and said planted acres of 78 million acres. Well, there's nobody in the trade believes that. Everybody thinks we're going to be up in the 80 to 82 range. And if we have any kind of yield at all, we could be in the 300 to 400 million bushel carryout range. So what could go wrong? I guess if, in fact, farmers plant a lot of corn and not so many beans, that would be one thing that would tend to be supportive. Now, so that's another one of the big trade-offs. You know, are we going to plant beans because we've kind of been out of the bean rotation? It's cheaper to put a bean crop in. Or are we going to plant corn, which I think is more profitable, has more upside potential for yield? Farmers tend to like to grow it. So I'm always suspicious of the, we're going to have a massive switching from corn to beans story. But maybe we will this year. If we don't, that could be a supportive factor.
Okay, so as of now, we're thinking the trade is 80 to 82 to 83 million acres priced in. If it came in at that 78, might represent a bullish factor.
Yeah, and we do have, you know, the Ag Outlook meeting comes out this week. This coming week, they meet on Thursday and Friday. They always come out with their sort of the kickoff for the beginning of estimates for planted acres. So that will be something to watch closely going ahead this week.
All right, now before we let you go, we got a couple of our Canadian viewers, Peter in Blythe and Phil in Dresden, Ontario, curious about corn demand. We're at record levels, looking at feed demand, looking at exports. Is that going to continue?
Well, I'm not sure the export demand can hold up given the competition around the world. So I think it's going to be good. But when you rally corn prices 40, 50 cents like we did, it tends to shut it down. Ethanol production has been good, but you know, that's going to kind of peaked out at about 5 billion bushel of corn. Feed demand, the USDA's plugged in a huge increase in feed demand. Cattle numbers are down, hog numbers are steady, poultry's barely higher. I don't know how you justify that. I'm very fearful of downward adjustments in feed demand reflected in that stocks report that comes out March 31st. So Canadians, those guys had a great crop. So there's a lot of product around the world to sop up some of that demand, but it's still, like the CBO said, if they should happen to be right and we have a 2.6 billion bushel carryout, it's going to take a lot of demand to take care of all that.
It's a lot of corn to chew through.
A lot of corn to chew through, and that's another reason why wheat's upside is limited, because that, you know, obviously they're competitive in some respects. So
you bet. All right, well, things to keep an eye on. Thank you, Tomm Pfitzenmaier, for being with us tonight. Have a happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you.
And thanks to all of you for sending in your questions via Facebook and Twitter. Please continue to do so. We'll continue to get expert analysis. And from everyone at Market to Market, want to wish all of you a happy Valentine's Day and weekend. So take care, and thanks for watching.